The MAGA movement in the US has started a loud protest against Donald Trump because of the war in Iran. In particular, conservative American TV host Tucker Carlson, who previously supported Donald Trump but now criticizes him, stated that the US might use nuclear weapons against Iran because the capabilities of conventional weapons are running out. Therefore, Tucker Carlson called on the military not to follow Trump's orders and to take away the so-called nuclear button from him. In response, Trump simply stated that Tucker Carlson has a low IQ. But it should be admitted that both Trump himself and his vice president, J.D. Vance, have actually hinted at the use of nuclear weapons. At the same time, some prominent Republicans, such as Mitch McConnell, on the contrary, expressed support for Trump's war against Iran. Nevertheless, more and more congressmen and senators in Congress are calling for the use of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution. They say Trump's presidential powers should be taken away, because supposedly something is wrong with his psychological or mental state that, they say, he is getting too carried away with the issue of war in the Middle East. I'm Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. This is very important for promoting the content on YouTube, and I would be grateful to you for that. And subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, opinions on the US war against Iran were divided even within the Republican Party. Well, for example, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell unexpectedly expressed support for President Donald Trump's war with Iran, backing the administration amid growing concerns among lawmakers about the conflict. And next, I'll quote Mitch McConnell. "I support what the president is trying to do. They have been at war with us for 47 years. They have killed Americans, they have killed Israelis, they have killed our Sunni allies from Arab countries in the Middle East, such as Jordan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. These were bad guys. I definitely don't think that turning the other cheek and trying to make another deal with Iran makes any sense. Critics ask, what happens next? I'll tell you, no matter how this all ends, their capabilities have been significantly reduced and their ability to harm others has been greatly diminished. So even if the next regime is very similar to the previous one, they'll have to start from scratch and rebuild this entire threat all over again." Congressional Democrats, meanwhile, are panicking. And in light of the threat, Trump's threat against Iran, more than a dozen Democrats in Congress have called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. Let me explain. The Vice President and a majority of the President's cabinet can use this 25th Amendment to remove the President from power if they consider him unable to fulfill his duties. Congress can also appoint its own body to assess the President's fitness for office instead of the cabinet. Well, here the Democrats are expressing themselves quite cautiously but at the same time critically. For example, Representative Yasamin Ansari stated that Trump's rhetoric has crossed all boundaries and she is introducing articles of impeachment, but not against Trump, rather against Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. By the way, pay attention to the names of those Democrats. Representative Ilhan Omar called Trump insane, an insane madman who needs to be removed from office. Representative Shri Thanada stated that Trump threatened to kill 100 million people and Congress must do everything possible to stop Trump and this war. Representative Mark Pocan called Trump too insane, dangerous, and unfit to have the nuclear codes. That was his quote. And these concerns about nuclear weapons are shared. Some Republicans, including those from the radical wing, feel the same way. Conservative American TV host Tucker Carlson, who previously supported US President Donald Trump but now criticizes him, said on his podcast on April 7th that the US might use nuclear weapons against Iran. Well, since the capabilities of conventional weapons are running out, he says basically that's it, there's no other way to win there. Carlson once again criticized the US military campaign against Iran and the threats to strike civilian infrastructure, stating that this would be a war crime. And so Carlson believes that the US will no longer be able to open the Hormuz Strait using conventional weapons. Well, since it can be blocked with mines, those mines can be constantly renewed, plus there are drones and so on. And accordingly, Carlson puts it this way. If your traditional options are exhausted, what do you have left? That's right, nuclear weapons. Well, and Carlson insists that there are a million signs pointing to this. At the same time, Carlson emphasized that a nuclear strike will not lead to peace, but could lead to a global nuclear war. Another quote from him, "This is madness. This is real madness. It's hard to believe that this even needs to be said out loud, but it has to be. Because all other things being equal, that's exactly where we're heading. And how do we know this? There are a million signs, but the clearest is that the dumbest neoconservatives from Trump's circle are saying it out loud." In the end, Carlson urged American officials to resist any potential attempts by Trump to launch massive attacks that would lead to the deaths of Iranian civilians. And what's interesting here is that New York Post journalist Caitlin Dernbas published a fragment of Tucker Carlson's speech and sort of captioned the video with the following words. "President Trump lashed out at Carlson when I asked him about this nonsense this morning. Then she quoted Trump's words, saying that Tucker is a low IQ person who has absolutely no idea what's going on." Well, according to him. Supposedly, Tucker Carlson calls Trump every day, but Trump doesn't pick up the phone. There's another interesting episode here. Even the former representative of the Republican Party, the notorious Marjorie Taylor Greene, who used to be a supporter of Donald Trump but is now his fierce critic, spoke out against the actions of the US president, calling for his resignation, after Trump wrote that an entire civilization would perish tonight. And then a quote from Marjorie Taylor Greene. "The 25th Amendment. Not a single bomb has fallen on America. We cannot destroy an entire civilization." Well, the 25th Amendment is the very amendment that can strip the President of the United States of his powers. But in the Trump administration, they kind of added fuel to the fire themselves. Trump wrote on Truth Social the day before that, quote, "An entire civilization could perish tonight." After that, his vice president, J.D. Vance, speaking in Hungary, said, quote, "We have tools in our arsenal that we are buying. We haven't decided to use them yet. The president can make a decision to use them and will do so if Iran doesn't change its behavior." As a result, the White House urgently issued a statement saying that neither Trump nor Vance meant nuclear weapons. Nevertheless, the wing of radical Republicans is turning away from Trump. And let me remind you, it was they who brought him to power. Tucker Carlson himself stated even more loudly that Trump thinks of himself as a god. Carlson commented on Trump's statement where he hysterically said, quote, "Open the damn strait, you crazy bastards." I think you remember that quote. And at the end, for some reason, Trump added, "Praise be to Allah." Well, apparently mocking the faith of the Iranian regime. To this, Tucker Carlson responded as follows, quote, "Who do you think you are? Did you decide that you're God?" With this phrase, Tucker Carlson harshly criticized Trump for his post about Iran with the words, "Praise be to Allah." Carlson emphasized that mocking religion is fundamentally unacceptable. Quote, "No president should mock Islam. That's not your job. We are not God. We did not create this." In addition, Carlson added that the US should not turn conflicts into competitions between religions. According to him, such statements strike at the very principles of faith. Quote, "This is not only a mockery of Islam, this is also a mockery of Christianity. This is a deliberate desecration of faith. This is evil." Now, I will show you the original video. Please listen and draw your own conclusions.
Who do you think you are? You're tweeting out the effort on Easter morning? You'll be living in hell. Just watch, praise be to Allah. So obviously you're mocking the religion of Iran. If you seek a religious war, that's a good idea. But by the way, no decent person mocks other people's religions. You might disagree with the theology, especially if it's not your religion, and you can explain why. But to mock other people's faith is to mock the idea of faith itself, and we should never mock that. Because at its core is the acknowledgement that we are not in charge of the universe. We did not build it. We won't be here at the end of it. We can destroy life. We cannot create it because we are not God. No, this is a mockery, not just of Islam. It's a mockery of Christianity. To send out a tweet with the F word on Easter morning promising the murder of civilians and then saying, praise be to Allah, without explaining any of it. You are mocking me and every other Christian because we're Christians. We can't support that. That is evil. That is an intentional desecration of beauty and truth, which is the definition of evil.
I'll leave it at that. Friends, I recommend you subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already, because tonight we'll be following the developments. And as soon as news comes in, I'll immediately go live and cover everything that's happening. So make sure to subscribe. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with absolutely any donation. You can use the QR code on your screens. This is the easiest way to support the work of this channel. With just one click, you can show your support. And in the description of this video, there are various other platforms. There you can find Patreon, PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube sponsorship, bank details, and even crypto wallets. So choose any option that's convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you give. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.